Say that you a baller. You lame, can't play this game. Step up to the plate, cause you say that you a baller. At the top, this is how I rock.
Welcome into another episode of The Rebound. Courtney Cox here with Aaron Hartwell. Happy Thanksgiving, post-Thanksgiving.
It's good to be back.
It is. I feel like it was a long stretch since the last time we talked about the NBA. We did an early rebound last week, and this week we're back on our normal schedule.
Got a lot to catch up on.
We did. Did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I was out in Ohio in the land near LeBron's. Actually, I was down in Southern Ohio, but yeah, everything went well.
Did you help carve the turkey?
No. I stayed out of the turkey carving business. I did eat a lot of the turkey.
Eating is more important.
That's an important job. Everyone has to do it.
Yeah.
Did some dishes. I kind of like to help out there instead of with the making of the food.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I usually make the drinks. That's
oh
fine.
yeah. That's very important.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into some NBA talk. We've got to make this a little quick because there's a Celtics game going on tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be interesting. They're taking on the 76ers.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that next week's episode. But let's start with the top of the Eastern and Western Conference. We've got Boston ahead of the Eastern Conference, and we've got Houston ahead of the Western Conference. Both teams performing extremely well right now. Obviously a long season, so anything can happen. These positions can swap. But top of the Eastern and Western, these are two teams that definitely deserve it.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty wild that just someone besides the Warriors are in first place in the Western Conference. I just looked this up. November 26th of last year was when the Warriors overtook first place, and they were in that position for the rest of the season. So the Rockets, by making it to, November 30th,
yep.
they already did more to unseat the Warriors than they did last year. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. I'm sure there'll be at least some back and forth for a little bit. The Warriors are still pretty close behind, but the Rockets, we'll talk about this later, are looking really good.
All right, now let's talk about the lowest point of both conferences. When there's a high, there's a low. In the Eastern, we've got Chicago. In the West, we've got Dallas, another Texas team. From these two teams, do you see them moving up at all, or do you think that this could be where they are for the rest of the season?
Yeah, short answer, no. Both teams are very bad. I think Chicago is going to stay there.
Yeah.
They have all sorts of issues. Atlanta will probably be around there too. I'm sure Celtics fans will be wishing that the Lakers accumulate a few more losses to catch up to Dallas. Everyone remembers Celtics have that Lakers pick. It has to be between 2 and 5 for them to get it in the 2018 draft. But right now the Lakers hanging around. I think they're 11th right now, so they're in the Western Conference. But yeah, the bottom and the top, at least for now, don't look like they're changing anytime soon.
All right, now let's talk about the Celtics in particular. They ended their 16-game win streak against the Heat on the road. I will say that I have not witnessed a Celtics loss so far this season, so I may be a good luck charm. I don't know, but
yeah, no, that definitely checks out.
I think that is correct. Well, maybe they should travel me. I don't know, my call. That's a shout out to you. But no, they came all the way back in that Heat game. Watching from home, I was hopeful. I was like, they're gonna do what they do the rest of the games. Didn't end up happening.
Yeah, but I think that's an important point. They kind of had been, we mentioned this in last week's episode, they'd had to come back in a lot of games. They've been down and kind of rallied and turned it around. I think they were stretched a little thin, you could say. They're still playing really well, but Danny Ainge mentioned this Thursday, this morning on Touch and Rich in his radio appearance. He said, the Celtics have played a lot of games. This has kind of been a bit of a demanding stretch going into that Pistons matchup. They'd played 3 more games than the Pistons entering Wednesday night. So, I think the big thing, the takeaway for me is that right after that Heat game, they come out and they win 2 games in a row, bounce back.
Let's talk about that game against Orlando. Everybody else suffering from the tryptophan. It was the day after Thanksgiving. The Garden had a doubleheader. We had Bruins in the morning, Celtics at night. They came out and impressed. I mean, they looked dominant in that one. And after the game, Kyrie was asked, how does it feel to lose one, then come back and perform like this? He said, we had to.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good sign, especially for a team that hasn't played a lot together, kind of a new team. And you get performances from other guys. Terry Rozier was the guy who stepped up. I think he had 23 points in that game.
His first 20-plus game.
Yeah, I know.
In his career.
It's pretty wild with this new team that he's able to, he's been playing a lot better this season, and that was a big night for him. And then you go back-to-back going to Indiana the next night and winning by 10 on the road against the Pacers. Not a great team, but still, that's those back-to-backs. Those have been something that the Celtics thrived on, last season. And then it's good to see a new roster. They're still able to do that, which I think is a testament to Brad Stevens, that he's able to get the same results out of different players.
All right, well, when you're so used to a team winning all the time and then you see them lose, I feel like fans start getting on edge a little bit. Pistons game, what did you see that happen there?
Yeah, I think, it's scary to say, but I think the Pistons are a pretty solid team right now.
Right.
And I think the one key matchup in that game was Avery Bradley against Kyrie. Everyone knows what Avery Bradley can do on defense, specifically against Kyrie in those games against the Cavs last season. Bradley did a pretty good job on him on defense, locking him up and forced some other Celtics players to kind of step up. And I think offensively for the Pistons, Andre Drummond was just a monster. He had, especially on the boards, he had 20+ rebounds. Was just had a huge game. I think he represents a big matchup problem for the Celtics, who don't really have that big guy. They have Aaron Baines, who's an upgrade from last season. They have Al Horford. But Drummond's still gonna get his against a team like the Celtics. So I think we might see the Pistons again down the line, and I think that's a good game. I wouldn't read too much into it in terms of a long-term problem for the Celtics. They still have only 4 losses, best record in the NBA. But I think that was an early test for them, and give credit to the Pistons, they showed up.
Absolutely. Well, you bring up Bradley. It was Avery Bradley, the return of Avery Bradley to the Garden. He got a tribute video, a very nice tribute video. I asked producer Marc, because he was at the game as a fan, I said, did you see a lot of Celtics jerseys with Bradley on the back? He said in his section alone, he could count 10. And he said, and every time that Avery scored, they went nuts. And then he said there was a few fans that anytime the Pistons scored, they'd go nuts. He's like, all right, let's relax. We still want the Celtics to win here. But it was a nice showing for him. I think that he seemed moved by it as well.
Yeah, and I think that's to be expected. All of this is to be expected. I think in terms of tributes, guys coming back, besides the Isaiah Thomas tribute that's going to happen in December, or in January, this is probably the next down. I think he's Bradley was he was the bridge between the big three. He was on those Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce teams, and then he was still on the Isaiah Thomas team. So he's been there a long time. He had been there a long time before leaving for Detroit, and just a good guy.
Yeah. Well, I think we had this conversation the other day, a few of us that were saying, where do you stack up in tribute videos?
Yeah.
Like, we saw Paul Pierce's, which was unbelievable. I had
that was great.
Chills. It was very well done. Isaiah Thomas, like you said, will be above Avery's, I think.
Yep.
But then, like, Kelly Olynyk.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Where's he gonna fall in this tribute video? Is it gonna be like a photo montage? Are we actually gonna get video? You know what I mean? I just think.
Are we gonna get the Jonas Jerebko tribute video?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, how many games do you have to play? How many seasons do you have to be on a team for it to be, a really big tribute?
I also think, interesting with the Cavs game, it's going to be a double tribute situation because you have Jay Crowder there too, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But yeah.
It's not like they can do a duel.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, maybe they'll have separate timeouts, separate tributes for
I'd be kind of upset.
Crowder and Thomas, and then they just measure the volume level, and I mean, that's kind of an unfair fight for Crowder.
But can you imagine if you played on a team, were incredible for a team, and then you had to share your tribute video when you came back?
Yeah. We'll see. I'm sure the Celtics usually do a good job with that stuff. So, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we will. But I still would rather have my own tribute video.
Hey, wouldn't we all?
Okay, so let's go to some other storylines. Obviously, the Cavs, which we've been talking about all season long. We've been talking about how they're terrible all season long, and then now they're starting to be the Cavs team that we know and hate.
It's that's a good way to put it. It's kind of the same storyline every year with the Cavs. Yeah. And, it usually, sometimes it gets to the point where you say, maybe this is a different storyline than in years past. And that's what happened this year. I think people were really questioning, what the Cavs could do this season. And then here we are, since LeBron's Arthur meme, they've won 9 games in a row. And now they're in 3rd place. I think they're tied for 2nd in the Eastern Conference. So I think this is more in line with what the Cavs are. They are getting some high level play, maybe higher than expected. LeBron's kind of putting the team on his back, as you can expect. I think it's interesting. Dwayne Wade's coming off the bench, and he's fitting into that role pretty nicely. They don't need him to start. They have J.R. Smith and Jose Calderon starting in the backcourt. And then Kevin Love has been great. He had 38 points in that game against the Heat earlier this week. So, yeah, it's been pretty balanced. Derrick Rose is kind of out of the picture now. So, for them to be producing, at this level is pretty impressive. And then you have Isaiah Thomas potentially coming back before Christmas or sometime in December. It's kind of unclear, but he could be back sooner rather than later. So. Yep.
Scary when he gets back.
Yes. It'll be interesting. It might take a little bit for them to mesh. I don't think Isaiah's ever played with a guy like LeBron. But I think once you get down the stretch a little bit, it's going to be, maybe you have some fatigue factor with the older guys, but they're going to be rolling.
Well, I think you can't talk about the Cavs this past week and not talk about LeBron getting ejected. His first ejection in his NBA career.
It's wild to think about.
Which is wild, and I think a lot of people were either tweeting like, "Oh, not all heroes wear capes," about the
Kane Fitzgerald,
yes,
the ref.
The ref, or being like, "I'm shocked that a ref did this because I think they're usually scared or he's got guts." But then you bring up a point that Michael Jordan was ejected 11 times.
Yeah.
So great players, big name players, have been ejected. LeBron just isn't one of them.
Oh yeah, no, and yeah, MJ's been ejected, Kobe's been ejected, all the great ones. I think LeBron's in a kind of a unique situation. Right from his rookie year, he was dominating. I think it's an interesting phenomenon. I think kind of later on as you go along, it seems like players are getting away with a little bit more. They can bark at the refs, and the refs kind of have a back and forth with them a little bit.
But LeBron's always barking at the refs.
He's always barking at the refs, which I guess he sets that bar, which he can do. And then maybe he crossed the line a little bit, and now who knows? Maybe the ejection floodgates will open. I doubt it.
You think?
No. Well.
I think some refs are seeing it happen, and now they're saying, okay, so if he does this to me, I'm going to do the same thing.
That'd be an interesting prop bet. Over under. I'd set the over under at maybe 1 or 2 ejections for the rest of the season.
1 or 2. Let's jot that down. Producer Marc, make a note of that because we're going to come back to it.
We'll circle back to that on the rebounds.
We'll do a full circle. All right, so yeah, the Cavs are doing well. Now let's go back to Houston.
Yeah.
James Harden. Pretty good so far this season. If you look at their leaderboard, he's in most of them.
Yeah, it's you have the little screenshot there, and
right.
it's just James Harden's face across the board.
Over and over and over again. We talked about the Celtics playing the Pacers. Houston killed the Pacers.
Yeah, and I think the craziest part is reading James Harden's stat line for November. So we have 34.9 points per game, 10.1 assists per game, and 5.5 rebounds per game. And he had 29 points. So his 29 points against the Pacers was actually below his monthly average. So I think he's got player of the month pretty much locked up there. The Rockets only lost 1 game all month. So yeah, I think that whole James Harden Chris Paul experiment seems to be working out okay. I know Paul was dealing with some injuries, but since he's came back, they've looked great. It still looks like it's Harden's offense. He's kind of running the show, which I think is a good sign for the Rockets and for Rockets fans that Chris Paul isn't trying to really impose his will too much. It's James Harden doing what he does, and they have a lot of three-point shooters around him, and that's what you get.
I think a lot of NBA players are good, though, at being able to see, stats and seeing guys really go off and being like, all right, you know what? They're hot right now. Let's keep them hot. I don't want to take it away from it at all.
Yeah, and Chris Paul has obviously been around the block a few times,
Correct.
Played with some good talent, but he had Blake Griffin and some good forwards in Los Angeles with the Clippers, and now he has a backcourt mate who can really score and can control the ball. So I think this has worked out great so far.
You bring up Blake Griffin, and I just have to say, I actually feel bad for him right now. I think he's dating Kendall Jenner. There's been a lot of reports about that. In The Curse, he's in all headlines.
The curse is real.
That's unfortunate for him.
Yeah, no, I mean that's. I was gonna say that's what he gets, but
But you can't say that.
I know, I will.
But the stats do go against dating a Kardashian.
They do.
Like Tristan Thompson, we haven't talked about him at all.
Blake Griffin has a history of injuries, so this is kind of unfortunate. It's like continuing with that trend.
And Kendall Jenner is a Jenner. not a Kardashian.
That's true.
So
Also,
you can't call it a Kardashian.
side note, Clippers are pretty much, they're in a bad spot right now.
Correct. So
Not
who
good.
really cares? Moving on.
Yeah.
Warriors outlast Lakers in overtime, 127-123 final. So the Warriors, to go to overtime with the Lakers,
Yep.
kind of stinks for them. Looking at Steph Curry, though, 28 points, 13 of those came in overtime. So I think he was probably like, oh God.
Yeah,
I
he
hope
was.
that we cannot lose this, and then really kicked it into high gear.
He was also playing really bad I think in the first 3 quarters of the game. His shot was off. He couldn't hit everything. He airballed a few threes, and then, that's the thing about the Warriors. If you give them enough time, I think the biggest thing was that in that game was the Lakers couldn't put him away. And Brandon Ingram had a shot at the end of regulation, couldn't get it done, and then once you give the Warriors a second chance, they're always going to take advantage.
But Lonzo Ball showed that he really wanted it. 15 points overall.
He came to play. Nice little double-double.
Yeah.
And, shows that I think that's good. He's not afraid of the spotlight, and I think we all know that. But, going against Steph Curry also has to play defense on the whole night. So not an easy matchup.
Well, LeVar Ball, obviously running his mouth, still thinks that his son is better than Steph Curry.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's comparing apples to oranges. Steph Curry is much older than Lonzo. Yeah. Who knows what Lonzo Ball is going to be like when he's Steph Curry's age? Like, that's where I come into play, where I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it that they're playing on the same playing field. Steph Curry's better than Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. I think it's also pretty obvious who LeVar Ball is. He's the guy, he's the guy on your team, the guy's dad who thinks his player is better than everyone else no matter what the stats are. He's just that guy.
He's a dad.
Yeah, he's a dad. He's a proud dad, and he's also a pretty annoying dad, and he thinks that his son's the best player on the court. And he mentioned that in kind of his quote. He's like, I trained Lonzo, so like this is how I see Lonzo's game. I don't really know Steph's game, even though there's plenty of opportunity to watch Steph's game.
Right.
But yeah, he's has a very biased opinion on it, and I don't think he's gonna say, hey, Steph Curry's better than Lonzo. He's not gonna, that'd be bad for the big baller brand.
Right. But do you agree that age may I'd like to see them both at the same age, and then we can have a better conversation about it rather than your rookie season, transition from college. You can't throw your son out there and say he's better than the biggest player in the NBA right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's also the argument, too, if you look at Steph Curry's stats through, 23 or 24 games in his first NBA season, they're kind of comparable to Lonzo Ball's. It's just way too early to tell for any of this.
Yeah. All right, well, the Spurs got a nice return for them. Tony Parker back into playing action for them. He announced it on Facebook on the Sunday before he returned. Kind of soon to announce right before. Like it was, less than 24 hours before the game. On Sunday, it said, #I'm back. Get ready, Spurs Nation. I'm coming back on tomorrow's game against Dallas. I'm really excited to play again. It has been some tough months with a lot of recovery, patience, and mental strength. I wanted to thank everyone who believed in my return, fans, family, friends, my recovery team, and the San Antonio Spurs. I couldn't have done this without your support. Go Spurs. So we've seen him play now. How much of an impact do you think he's going to have now that he's back full term? I think your first game back was good.
Yeah.
But you're only going to build on that.
Yeah, no, I think this definitely helps the Spurs. It gives them a little bit more depth. It takes a little bit of pressure off, the rest of the, I think just having a point guard who knows what he's doing, who's been in Greg Popovich's system for a while. We've seen, like you said, they won the first 2 games with him back in the lineup, and they're now 14-7, right behind the Warriors and the Rockets. So I don't think anything's really going to change. And then if you look at the silver lining, this is a guy who's kind of in the back 9 of his career. He's pretty old, and he misses a few games in the beginning of the season. Maybe that means he's more fresh down the stretch run. So.
Absolutely. Well, that should be interesting in the Western Conference when you look at those top 3 teams.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a dogfight at the end of the season.
And some great potential playoff matchups between those.
Absolutely. All right, now let's go to our favorite part, some social media. Thanksgiving always brings the best, the most thoughtful, the most thankful social media. Let's kick things off with Dwayne Wade, Uncle Dwayne, on Thanksgiving with 2 of his nephews. Cute picture.
Yeah, no, I was expecting some sort of better sweater situation. Oh, they got some leopard spots.
Yeah,
on
that's
there.
like a sweatshirt.
Yeah, kind of a hoodie.
Yeah, definitely a hoodie. See, they go, well, No, because the nephews are pretty dressed up. But you know what probably happens? The mom, those nephews, their mom's like, you guys have to dress up. It's Thanksgiving.
You're going to see
no
Uncle Dwayne.
one's telling Dwayne Wade, you got to dress up for Thanksgiving. I actually got into a conversation about, do you dress up or do you dress down for Thanksgiving? My family is definitely a dress up family. But I know some people are like, no, that makes no sense. You eat food and watch football all day.
I think especially if you host, too. That's good dressing down opportunity right there.
That is true. All right, let's move on to LeBron James, who is kind of a wine snob.
Yes.
I need to read what this actually says because it's kind of mind-blowing. Well, obviously he starts with the emoji. Last night was mad real, fresh out of Advil. Okay, so he's hungover. Jesus grabbed the wheel, so he's really hungover. Yeah. Sheesh. You had to be there to truly understand. Even though I wish you were there so you could. Hashtag Vino Chronicles. P.S. Don't talk to me about wine like you know it if you really don't know what you're talking about. Seriously, thank you. LeBron James. You're hungover.
We got a PSA here.
You are lining up. I would like to know actually how much each bottle costs. That would be an interesting...
I think it's slightly outside of our price range.
It is. Yeah. So you did look at... Someone's looked at it.
I'm just assuming.
I mean, maybe. Or some people just don't care and like red wine. There's a lot of red... I mean, it's basically...
Yeah, he's big red wine.
Big
Usually
red wine.
when you see him in the videos, he's drinking red wine, not
but
white.
The caption makes no sense. You're not telling us what happened last night. You're just saying, you missed. Wow. What a great night. You missed it. Wish you could be there. You don't really wish we could be there. But you weren't, so you don't get it.
I think maybe he's shouting out someone, maybe someone specific who wasn't there, or maybe some like family member passed away or something like that.
Really?
Who knows? That's how I read it. Also, I think the first couple lines, I think there's a Kanye West quote in there. I think last night was mad real. I think is a Kanye West quote. Who knows with LeBron? He likes to get his Instagrams interpreted in all sorts of different ways. But
that's interesting, though, because we both had very different interpretations.
I know. And I think the third person could have a completely other different...
100%.
So we'll just have to wait for the next one.
Yes,
Get a little Instagram breakdown.
He gives us Instagrams every week, so we are looking forward to that. Moving on to a little Boston love here. The Patriots and Celtics always like to support each other. Here is Gronk post-game against Miami, wearing some Kyrie's
pretty
swag.
Fresh. I like the white and gold. I think this is probably around the time he was talking about not being able to talk about celebrations, so that makes it more amusing for me.
That it does, but we do see a lot of Patriots at Celtics games. We didn't see that against Orlando because Tom Brady said, we're going to keep it locked down.
Said, I don't want to see any Patriots players at Celtics games.
At Celtics game, yeah. Doug Hyde, one of our coworkers, had tweeted, any Patriots players at the Celtics games, and I had responded saying, I don't see any. And so I got berated. People were like, oh, you're a snitch. Like, no, I just said I didn't see anything.
Hey,
I mean,
whatever. You'd be a snitch if you called someone out and said, hey, there's Deion Lewis in the first row or something.
Which could have happened. Yeah. I don't know. But everyone would have known anyway. There's social media. But this was your favorite social media thing from the week.
Oh, yeah, this is great. So we have LeBron doing his little uninterrupted thing, talking about his ejection. And, once it comes up, you'll see the video.
Truly with our game plan. We've been sharing the ball.
I think that's
offensively moving body.
And it looks like Jim Carrey's just blatantly mocking whatever LeBron James is saying. He's talking about, my teammates stepped up, played well after the game, or after I got ejected. And then there's just Jim Carrey just completely making fun of him. So by complete coincidence.
You think?
Yeah, well, I mean...
You can interpret it differently. It's LeBron.
Why would he set himself up for that, though? I think that's great, though.
Because he's probably maybe making fun of himself. I don't know. Yeah. But the last but certainly not least, New York loves their basketball, even though they're not really doing crazy good right now. But Kristaps for NYC mayor.
That's right. We got a few spelling issues here, but according to this story here, it still counts as a good write-in if you misspell the name a little bit. So we have Aaron Judge with 10, but Kristaps technically has 11 votes there because there are 2 misspellings. So that means he had the most write-in votes for NYC mayor, beating out Aaron Judge. I like his chances in the mayoral race. I think he can pull it off. Yeah, young mayor, but he's he's charismatic. He's good at getting things done, like scoring basketballs. That's my pitch for him. I might move to New York and be his campaign manager.
I think he would be really good at that. Dan.
Yeah, that's. I made a very strong pitch right there.
You did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that will do it for this week. We will have more for you next week. We'll see some more Celtics games. Crazy week next week.
Oh yeah.
2 home games
it's gonna be fun.
on. We've got Saturday. There's one Saturday.
Yep.
It's Rachel Holt will be there.
Then
It's Rachel Holt. And then we got one Monday and Wednesday home games.
Yeah, it's gonna be busy. And Thursday night, this coming night, Sixers in town. That's a great game.
Yeah, I feel like, and Philly's pretty close to Boston, so they might have a good traveling group that's here to see them play.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, that will do it for us. You can follow along on Twitter with Darren at Darren_Hartwell, or myself at Cox Courtney, but keep it locked in right here at Nesta.com. We will have everything you need about this NBA season, and we will see you next time.
Walking on eggshells, barefoot, trying to reach my reservoir. Stole my style, need to pay me back. Crazy brainiac, made me turn into an animaniac. Say that you a baller.